Hello and welcome to the Blossom Unity podcast. My name is Dennis. This is Nicole. And we're here to introduce you into the conversation about different spiritual perceptions, techniques, and methodologies in order for you to have inspiration for your day-to-day life. I had an amazing week. I hope you all had an amazing week. Nicole, did you have an amazing week?
Oh yeah, I love
That's what I
Sunday
like to hear.
service. It's my favorite day of the year. It's like so it's amazing. I had yesterday a client and I wanted to give her the chance to have a session on summer solstice because you really can alter your destiny.
Hmm.
And we did that and it was really, really great.
Amazing sauce.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's very powerful.
There's been a major shift within the collective I've noticed energetically.
Mhm.
Um, Yesterday was just wow. It was very beautiful. Very, I mean, recently, I mean, the whole week was very light and very just uppity, I guess. It
Mm.
was very up and a very uppity energy, but very clear, very grounded. Like if you wanted to get lost in the sauce, you could, but you remained grounded
Mm.
within that sauce. It's like jumping into some good soup, you know. It's like, I'm gonna just remain.
You don't do that, but I just learned like there is a saying in the States, you do a cold turkey. And so I guess jumping into a sauce is another one.
No, no big deal.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. So
Amazing.
this week we're gonna talk about cults.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Dennis and I, we always have a little pre-talk and he asked me like, oh, did you see the Teal Swan video? What do you think about that? And I said, I didn't watch the movie,
Hmm.
but and then Dennis told me that you go ahead and tell people what's in there.
Well, there's many different aspects to it. You know what? Rather than coming from my opinion about it, I suggest that you watch it yourself. It's on Hulu, and so then you don't have a biased opinion, especially if you listen to us every week. I'd rather you not have something biased. I'd rather you remain open when you watch anything, with any, massive teacher who has a great following, who's helped many people, um, who has a little controversy at times. I mean, there's many teachers who's had controversy. We can talk about a famous teacher who had some controversy and they killed him for it. The good man Jesus. He
Like
had some controversy. Da,
little.
da, 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 da. And they said he had a cult too. And uh, when we talk about cults, there's many different forms of them. Um, Whenever you start building a community separate from society, it's instantly going to be called a cult. That's just the Western thing to do. Oh yeah, that's a cult. Um, I say remaining open whenever you watch anything of that. See what resonates, what doesn't. Seeing from multiple perspectives, seeing from the perspective of the teacher as well as the student, just so you have a better understanding and not picking a particular side too quick.
Yeah. I have a pretty clear idea about this whole cult discussion because I think every big teacher, every big spiritual leader in the Western society is considered a cult leader. I haven't seen one, neither Sadhguru, neither Moji Baba, neither Eckhart Tolle, neither Teal Swan, like all the big ones that are really, really influential are at some point, as when they have a community and they build communities, then they're considered a cult. And then for me, like, being in a cult is one thing, but for me there are certain, the what's the difference between a cult and a sect? For us in Europe, there is a pretty close. It's pretty close, but there is a difference in that. So a sect is when you cannot get out, your whole personal life is in there, your money goes there, you have no other social interactions, you should not have them, they're even prohibited. So I think, and then the cult is just like a following of a spiritual teacher. And we in the West, we have a very specific understanding. We're afraid, like my mom was always afraid that I would end up in a cult or in a sect. So I think it's really interesting. And she always said to me, this is really dangerous because they tell you what to think. And that's really fascinating for me because, interesting enough, here, so media, social media, and the TV and the society norms tell you what to think and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And there's a massive hypnosis when it comes from advertisements about food, about all of that. And then you have, on the other hand, you have the people that are having the cult, which are like most of the time healers and thought leaders when it comes to consciousness, awareness, etc. And they tell that, of course, they tell people how to think and to think differently than what society says, because society is not running into the best direction in general. And then this is a cult, and it's true. It's going against the big mainstream collective thought forms. And yes, that's dangerous for the matrix.
So when it comes to cults, the first viewpoint that you need to really recognize is there an unhealthy admiration towards the particular person
I
or
think
object?
that's normal because the person and the vibrates higher than you, and of
See, the
course.
point of a really good teacher is for them to recognize that you are what you're looking for.
Yes, they all do that.
So
People don't care. I think
they do.
followers don't care. It's you're a role model. That's what it is. Look at all the big teachers. Sadhguru, Dalai Lama is admired. The Pope is admired. Like all the big leaders of groups which provide a belief system, provide a way of relief of pain, they are admired. It's just on one hand it's accepted by society and on the other it isn't. No.
There's a difference between admiration and unhealthy admiration, where it turns into obsession and then hinders your growth as an individual.
Well,
So I noticed within some of the lives that I've done, there was people will say, "You're my peace, you're my comfort, you're my safety," and I let them know off rip, no, the hell I'm not. That peace that you're feeling is within you. That comfort that you're feeling is happening within you. So there's a point where you could be in the unhealthy admiration as a leader and being like, okay, I'm just going to feed into it. Yes, go
oh yeah,
ahead.
of course, yeah, but
That's the problem that I'm saying is
yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you have a cult in that way where the person's looking at it and they're going, oh yeah,
Love me, love me.
yeah,
Yeah,
love me, love me, love me. One, that's major egoic dysfunction,
totally.
right? And now you're hindering that person's growth. So we can't be too quick. So the word cult obviously gets a really bad rep, especially in the Western society,
Yeah,
because what was it, 50s, 60s, so when rock and roll came out, all your devil worshippers, the cult, all of it. So it got a really bad rep, and it made mainstream news. It was in the newspaper. People only read then. People read the newspaper, and if it was in the newspaper, it was real. It was 100% fact. And it was a different time then, and we got to realize those people are still alive, and those thought patterns have lived on, passed down generation after generation, and it's incorporated within our societies.
mm,
So What we need to recognize is when I say be open in the beginning, with the opening statement, being open whenever you're watching something of that nature is one, now you need to kind of look at the view of what you view a cult to be and what is it actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's a teacher who's feeding on that pain, who's looking at them again, yes, I am your peace, I am your comfort, I am your one, um, then there's an issue.
Yeah.
Which, at the end of the day, though, when you go really deep into your spiritual practice, you realize you are that,
Hmm.
but you need to recognize that it's not that person that's standing in front of you.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, especially when it comes to Teal Swan. I really like her. I think she's a fucking brain when it comes to shadow work. She's like a thought leader when it comes to that. And she really has capabilities that not a lot of other people have. She's really very, very conscious, but she's also very triggered sometimes. But that happens like to like look at like I see like the only person that I cannot imagine to be triggered is Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, he's
I
no, there's no way.
cannot imagine him to
There's
be
no way.
triggered. Like
Ever,
impossible.
ever,
He would
ever,
be like, oh,
ever.
but you never know. Like, in one-to-ones, if you work closer with people, I don't know, probably Eckhart Tolle doesn't do that, which would be a smart move. Like, but
Yeah.
and that's probably the thing. I think doing smaller groups in closer selection sessions when you're becoming a big teacher with a big aura is not smart. That's what also Sadhguru does. Sadhguru doesn't teach by himself. Moji Baba doesn't. He teaches, but he just gives the satsangs, and so I think it's yeah, it's quite interesting in the West. In India, it's perfectly normal to have 100,000 people following you anywhere you go and laying down to your feet, and that's not a big deal. And compassion with everyone that comes around you is just very normal. But
Mm.
here in the West, if you have 100,000 people following you and kneeling onto your feet, you must be a pop star.
You're a rock star in the spiritual community. So then we need to talk about, okay, well, what's being triggered? Now, let's say one day, walking down the road, somebody punches me in the face. And I'm conscious that I just got punched in the face, right?
Mhm.
And I'm also conscious that I just balled my fist and punched him and knocked him out. I wasn't triggered though. He just got exactly what he gave. So there's some teachings that I watch that I've read into and actually practice. I think it's quite unique. Is that there were really fierce teachers, mainly. We'll keep it here. There were some really fierce teachers, and they used to paint them as being fierce because they were very, 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 very fierce. It was their culture. Um, when you teach from the veil of your culture, which most teachers do, right? We have Sadhguru, he teaches through the veil of his culture, which is Indian. Eckhart Tolle teaches through the veil of his culture, and so on and so forth. So there's some cultures that are very, very, very fierce, and they will cuss, they will yell, they will be vulgar and aggressive,
Of
but
course.
inside, there's nothing happening. They're
Nothing.
totally at peace. So then we're able to recognize, okay, well, what's being triggered? How do we know that that person is actually triggered? If that person is looking at you saying, yeah, you're just a fucking asshole, right? Were they triggered or were they just calling you out? So then we're able to recognize that too. Well, no. That person's triggered because they called me out. Not necessarily. Were you being an asshole? I was. Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah. So I think, in like for me in the beginning of our discussion, I said like every big teacher is called a cult leader that I know of. of today's teachers that I personally think, whoa, those were really like they are and were thought leaders. Gandhi,
Mm.
he created a cult. Like it's really interesting that whenever someone is breaking the current value set of society and introducing a new value set, then
Mm.
like a group of people goes against that and wants to fight that. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
in
Anything
Kundalini
past.
Yoga, my teacher Hari Jivan, he says when you're having a third of the people love you, a third of the people doesn't care, and a third of the people hate you, then your aura is big enough to really make a difference. And I
Mm.
think that's beautiful because that
Yeah,
makes so much sense. That's a third in the positive mind, a third in the negative mind, and a third in the neutral mind. And so if you ever want to go do advertisement, if you want to go and get new clients, you talk to the third that doesn't know you. Because the ones
yeah,
that love you, they're anywhere there, and the ones that hate you, they don't want to know you. And you won't convince them to not hate you. So, and I think that's true for those big teachers. Like I've seen so many videos, like people was that like I had people excusing themselves to me. They're like, yeah, I really like Sadhguru. I know he's like, ugh, but I really like him. I was like, why? Of course he's amazing. Like, why would you say sorry for that? But it's the same with Kundalini Yoga. Like, you find a lot of online things that say Kundalini Yoga is the devil. I do it every
yeah,
day. So, you know, it depends. I think it's if something really is able to transform your life, then you will have some people against that really work against it,
yeah.
that do the work.
So one of the biggest ways that you can actually tell if someone's going to be your teacher, right, or your guru or whatever, is if you're extremely fucking uncomfortable near them. Extremely, because the energy doesn't lie. The energy doesn't lie. If they're holding this auric space and they're completely making you naked and you can't hide from it, there you go. There's your teacher.
Mm. And you
There's your
can decide
teacher.
if you want that or not.
Exactly.
It's your decision. I
Mhm.
mean, you decide if you want to stay or if you want to leave.
Remember back when we were first starting doing the podcast, we always talked about how I did shit to the extreme. That's one of the things that I would do. If I was ever uncomfortable around somebody, oh, I stayed near them so long, longer than I needed to, because I know there's something here. I need to
That's
figure it
why you
out.
still do
I need
this
to learn.
podcast with me.
Mm.
No, no.
Hey, truth be
Because
told,
we always
Nicole makes
argue.
me extremely
No,
uncomfortable.
no, no.
No, not at all.
So funny.
Um, but yeah, that was one of the biggest things. And I remember when I first started seeing Sadhguru, it was, I say, like 3 or 4 years ago. I did not like that guy. It's
Oh,
like, oh, he's just an egoic monster. He's just full of ego. Now realizing it was my ego that was talking, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this guy, what? How dare you say that? Because I was still like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, somewhere around there. I was still stuck in that. You have to be nice all the time.
yeah, of course. That's
And I see
the
that.
whole West is like that. The whole
Yeah,
Western society is like how can you call people out like that? Oh my God.
yeah. It just like if you're not nice and gentle, like there's a way to be. You can be gentle while being still forceful. Well, not, maybe forceful isn't the right word, but um, direct can be seen as aggressive.
Very.
But you can still be very gentle with it. It's like I care, right? It's take a look in the mirror. So I wasn't recognizing that. I couldn't, and he just kept popping up every single time, just popping back in. I'm like, I keep on trying. No, I don't want to watch this. No, I don't want to read this. No, 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 no. And then finally one day I was like, fine,
I read
I'll
it.
watch it. Fine, go ahead. And when that happened, and I sat there and I watched it, I cried, just tears flowing.
Yeah.
And then after that, uh, things really started
Yeah.
spinning.
Hmm.
So yeah, you can try and fight it, but it's gonna keep knocking.
I think it's you don't even have to fight it. I mean, there's free will on this planet. That's the amazing thing.
To
Like
an
you,
extent, to an extent, to an extent.
no, no, no.
I've
There's
gotten it.
free will. No, 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 no. There's free will. You choose whatever you want, but then you pay the consequences. It's very simple, and
So
sometimes
hear me
you
out.
don't know the consequences. But
This is groundbreaking material. Okay, this free will word gets thrown around a lot, which in essence is very, very, very 100% true. We have the free will to choose whatever. But if somebody is trapped in a particular thought form,
of course, but it's
that
free
thought form
will.
is the one choosing
Yes,
for
but
them.
it's free will. Anyway, it's you like I had today a client. She came in here 8 a.m. and she said, I want to sell my car. And I was like, that makes no sense. And I said, okay, well, like why? She's like, oh, I cannot afford it. And I know what she makes. I was like, oh, okay. Well, how do you think you cannot? And she kept on going and she's like, oh, this card is stealing my freedom. I was like, that's bullshit. And I called her out and I said, that makes no fucking sense what you're telling me. Like everything you do makes no sense. Like, okay, feel into that. Where do you feel that it doesn't make you, that it takes away your freedom, this car? And then we ended up like finding a situation of her childhood that created this feeling and it was just blocked in the car. That's what Dennis means with the thought form. So, but I mean, she could have chosen to listen to me, to her therapist, or not. And if you don't listen, you just pay the price for the thought form that you want to keep, and that's fine. Or there are some spiritual teachers which are quite bomb, and you can listen to them. You can like there's this option, but that's free will as well. Like, how do you want to spend your life? It's constructive versus destructive. And I said to her, she said to me, like, oh, I wanted to sell this car for so many times. And every time I want to do it, either my family says I shouldn't do it, or now you said. She was really angry. And I told her, like, well, after we cleared the resonance, I said to her, look, in my experience, when I want to do things and I, in essence, know that something's off, I ask people if I should do it or not, because a part of me wants to get this reflection of the people saying no or yes, depending on what the answer is that I don't want to hear. They always say that, by the way, the thing you don't want to hear. And then, and people have a very good sense of like when something is off. People feel that, and especially family and close friends, when they call you out on something like this, is then for sure it's a resonance, then something is off.
Mhm.
So but there's free will.
There is an essence, yeah. I agree and disagree. We
Again,
can do that.
you and
We
I
can do that.
agree to disagree.
It's just I recognize it like this. If you're in your thought, you believe that you're your thoughts. If you had the free will to know that you're not, you have the free will to know that you're not your thoughts. But if you haven't yet tapped that truth, your free will and your destiny is determined by the thought patterns and the past
Yeah,
experiences that you've accumulated.
of course.
So you have free will, yes,
Yes.
but your patterns are choosing for you. So in those choices, there is no free will, but the free will is in the background that you don't realize you have.
Yeah.
It's quite sad. I remember I got in a conversation with somebody, I don't know, like a year ago, and this was before I like came to terms with this. They were talking about astrology, and they're like, I was like, well, do you really have free will if the planets are going to choose what goes on in your life? Do you have free will, or can you become so conscious that you actually have the free will and the planets don't have to affect you?
Yes.
And they're like, no, oh, absolutely not. The planets are always going to choose for you. I was like, well, So if you're conscious, real conscious, I'm not talking about mentally alert. Okay. Your intellect is great.
Not
Good
mindful.
job.
Not mindful.
I'm talking about conscious. How do you know that you're aware right now? How do you know that are you seeing or are you witnessing your I see? Conscious. And they argued me. And I would just sit there and listen. And I was like, you know what? There's something here that's fighting this. And I think I'm onto something. And then I came to it. And then it was funny. I would say like 6 months later, there was a few great teachers who were actually talking about that exact topic. And they were like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I knew it. I knew it. And then I experienced it right after. I was like, whoa, that was interesting how that all synchronized effortlessly.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. There is, the more conscious you get, the more aware you are, the more in flow you are, the more you co-create with everything that is, um, the less impact everything has.
Yeah.
And it's really like in a Kabbalistic astrology, I always do every week a Kabbalistic astrology podcast. And in
Yeah. Energy shot, right?
yes.
Yeah. Great. Great. Hey, if you are listening to the Blossom, you need to go check out the Energy Shot
Yeah.
podcast. It's amazing.
And so in Kabbalistic astrology, which is very, very old teaching, it's the basis of astrology, of the Western astrology that is nowadays here, and that everybody says, yeah, the planets are like this when you're born, then you're done. Um, except there's one more astrology that doesn't do that. But in Kabbalistic astrology, they say this is just your teaching, and you work with the planets, and then you co-create with them, and then when you're out of the tikkun, when you're cleared your certain kind of planets, then you start to co-create with all the planets, and that's what you do. So, and this is also my personal experience, like I work with the planets like every week. So yeah, let's create a cult. I would be totally
No
let's
way.
do it. Not
See, for me, okay, so this is my opinion. Okay. And I'm not even gonna say that. It's not my opinion. This is my perception.
you're so
Okay.
on X.
This is my perception.
Yeah,
Okay. I rather have openness than having a closed community. Now, that community can remain open, but then it's not a cult because it's an open community. I rather remain open and not build something away from society. I rather grow and establish flowers within society. That's for me. For some people, they want to head off to the hills or they want to build a community, they want to do this and that. That's you. For me, I rather plant roses in the city.
me too. I think
So we'll create a cult in a skyscraper.
no, I think it just doesn't make sense
I'm joking.
to not want to live in society, and to not want to live in the society that you were born. Like, and there were many people asking me, why don't you go to India, Nicole? Why don't you do that? And I always said, there's a reason why I was born in Switzerland. It's a reason. There's a reason for that. This is a society that I was born in, and there's a reason for that. There, and you were born in the United States, and there is a reason for that as well. And it's, I don't think that it's the idea to go away from society, because then you're just a triggered little shit.
Right. Unless you do
Unless
what you
you're in a
do,
cult
right? You
and
get
you think
blasted out.
yes.
Yeah, and then you're just like, you know what? Yeah, yeah, right,
Like,
for sure. But
my personal opinion is, I have personally met several amazing teachers, and I have experienced what it does to your life when you're in the presence of a spiritual teacher, a true spiritual teacher, and you don't even have to talk to them. You just sit in their auric field, like experienced with Eckhart Tolle. I experienced it with Guru Jagat and with Hadijivan, and so when you experience that with Snatam Kaur, I experienced it as well. It's like amazing. So when you are in the presence of someone that has a higher consciousness, a higher vibration, their sound is more purified than your own song.
Yeah.
That really does something to how you sound after
Mm.
that, because
Yeah.
your sound can adapt to this higher vibration. It can, if you heard it for the first time, a high vibration like this, like if you felt it in the presence of a person like that, that really changes and alters your own incarnation. And no matter what everybody says to me, I personally, to a real teacher, I would bow to their feet whenever I can, because I don't have a problem with acknowledging that there are souls which are givers to me.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
and I think Teal Swan, no matter what she did and how many mistakes she made with her closed or open cult, I don't care. But what I see from her, her vibration is really high. She has a huge consciousness, and yeah, but she's very human as well, as we all are. And I
Yes,
really love
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
It's about becoming more human. I think
Yeah.
we talked about this before.
Last week, I said I want
Yeah.
to become superhuman.
I said, no, let's become more human.
Yes.
All right. This has been a beautiful podcast. Thank you so much for sitting with us this week. I hope you go and check out the Energy Shot podcast. And if you're in the mood and looking to do some yoga, definitely check out My Alley. It's subscription based and very affordable. And you can do yoga from the comfort of your home from some of the greatest teachers in the world. Beautiful, beautiful vibrations, beautiful souls. Also, if you're in the mood for reading and you're a great reader, checking out the Alley.Vision magazine. It is beautiful, has a bunch of knowledgeable information that you can use, just like we say, for your day-to-day life, and granting that inspiration. It's a great way to add to your daily routine. If you're already checking your phone for TikTok, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the all that stuff, you can definitely add and join into Vision and making that a part, so you can have that inspiration. Instead of going on TikTok, you can go on Vision and get some inspiration and some motivation to be more creative and more uplifted. So have a beautiful week, everybody. I love you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have an amazing week. And let us know your opinion on cults. I would love to read some of that. Really, I would love to. Okay. Have a great one. Bye bye.